the Warriors are like hurtling towards basketball hell right now. Like
and I had them,
they have
19th?
they've been
19th,
awful,
yeah.
and they got beat by 1,000. I know Curry wasn't there. I thought the app was screwed up when I saw that score. It's like 100-50, and I was like, no way.
It's embarrassing.
Like 100-50.
It's a joke.
This is ridiculous. And I was listening. I was listening to the beginning of Zach's pod that he's doing, Nick Friedel, and oh my God, Friedel was just. I mean, do not listen to that if you're a Warriors fan, because
Or listen to it.
Not only were they just, unrelenting on Wiseman and just done like it wasn't pretty on the Wiseman front, but the other one was do you have the goods? Is this what you should build around? Is there to be another act with Curry, Clay, and Draymond? And he kind of crapped all over that idea too.
What did he say about that?
Just like that this is not, you're not just going to build around, Curry, Draymond, and Clay. I mean, Clay's obviously he's at the ACL and then the Achilles after that. And that, and obviously they needed Wiseman to be good immediately. And so how are you building and how are you building with Steph in mind for this last, whatever, X number of years in his prime versus what you're doing with this James Wiseman draft pick that you just used the second pick in the draft on and whatever else. But it just was not, it wasn't pretty. And they were pretty rough on Wiseman and just kind of how bad he has been. That like, just the truth is he has not been good. He hasn't been good.
No,
and everybody can make all manner of excuse and whatever else, and he's just lost his confidence that, Kerr's got these recent quotes about him. But in terms of what you want is a player to respond, he's had he's had to sit out for the health and safety things. He's gotten benched. He's been moved back into the starting lineup, and it hasn't had the desired effect. It does not seem there on Wiseman. You want him to take that instruction, take that punishment in some ways, tough love, and then react in an extremely positive manner. And instead, the more often reaction has been to kind of hole up, And he is young, and he didn't play in college and whatever else, but it hasn't gotten better as the season has gone on, which is what you want to see with the development of a young player, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think with the Warriors, this season is obviously a lost year. It's a transition year without Klay Thompson, but you would have hoped that they would be better than this, especially with Steph Curry off the floor. You would hope that they would have shown some adaptability. And that was the main thing in the blurb for the power rankings that I had about Golden State, is that, adaptability is the number one quality in the teams that win for years and years and years and years and years. San Antonio Spurs, the New England Patriots, what Pop has done over the years, going from Twin Towers post offenses with David Robinson and Tim Duncan to playing more, ball movement, motion offenses with Manu and Tony Parker. Bringing in Kawhi and Leonard, you use more isolations than you ever have before. Always adapting. The Patriots did that over the years, switching defensive schemes, 3-4 to 4-3, going to nickel base before anybody else, running 5 wide, going to 2 tight end sets with Rob Gronkowski, Aaron Hernandez, constantly switching systems to best fit the system to the personnel. The Warriors are running the same scheme they did 4 or 5 years ago when you had worse players and guys who were different types of players. And the solution is not simply run more pick and roll with Steph Curry because he's the most efficient pick and roll shot creator in the league ever. It's not that. Teams are going to blitz and trap him, get the ball out of his hands. That is not the solution. But what this does magnify is 2 things. I worry about the lack of adaptability. Steve Kerr has talked for years about I hate running pick and roll. I don't want to pick and roll. And it makes guys, get bored standing in a corner. They get taken out of the game. Essentially, he doesn't want to be the Rockets, but you don't have to be the Rockets to run more pick and roll with Stephen Curry and James Wiseman. James Wiseman, one of the reasons why I think he's probably struggling is because he's not doing the thing that he's best at right now.
Yeah.
Rim running, screen and rolling, pick and popping. Like, I want to see more of that. Get those guys going, integrate that into your offense, add another layer. But it's not the solution to their struggles. The fact is that this team needs personnel changes, and that's on Bob Myers and the front office. They got to bring new guys in. You can't just hope for Klay Thompson to come back and stay healthy and maintain and be the same Klay Thompson we saw prior to that injury. You can't just hope for that and then for that to work. You also need to have some personnel changes and system changes here too. So there's so much that I look at with this Warriors roster.
Because things are different. So while Steph Curry might be the same and he's not going to be like peak of powers Steph, like the historic MVP seasons that he had. But he could be a large percentage of that. But the other two, the idea that Klay Thompson is going to be what Klay Thompson was
unrealistic
with the age and coming off the injuries is rather far-fetched at this point. And
Draymond's not the same guy either.
Draymond Green averages 6 points a game, Kevin.
And defenses don't respect him.
No, and one of the great forgotten games of all time, is the Game 7, the pin block. Draymond had almost a 30-something point triple-double in that game. I think he was one number shy of having a triple-double in that Game 7. Draymond Green is not scoring 30-something points in a finals game.
He had 32 points, 15 rebounds, 9 assists on 11 of 15 shooting. I'm not sure he's shot 15 times in a single game this year.
When it mattered most. That is
13 is his most for what it's worth.
That 13. Is Game 7 of the NBA Finals.
Yeah.
He hasn't had a 30-point game. When is the last time Draymond Green? That might be the last time Draymond Green scored 30. Whatever that Finals was against the LeBron Cavs. He averages 6 points a game. I get it. It's what he does. But if there was ever a time where, it was a little more needed in the absence of Klay Thompson, that has not been so. And so he's not that guy. He's not that guy that he was when they were making those finals runs. And so things are different. And if you want to do the read and react, they had such insanely high IQ players for so many years. And even the ones they brought in, the Livingstons, the Iguodalas, the Barbosas, the David Wests, the Anderson Varejãos, whoever, Andrew Bogut, whoever you want to bring in, right? They were all mega basketball savvy, high IQ guys, right? And you can't just say, hey, this is the way we play when we're the Warriors. This is why the Spurs don't bring in Kelly Oubre and Andrew Wiggins. That's why. They don't bring in those kind of guys. You know what I mean? So if you want to be that team, if you want to be the pop it around, read and look at the defense, react to the defense, cut here, cut there, and everybody's kind of reading each other's mind, then you better have a gang of high IQ players, not just whoever you draft and whoever you sign in free agency or trade for, and then say, go do that stuff, because that just, that to me, that is a little bit of that's a reluctance or a lack of awareness of what you did have that was so special.
Well, and so Golden State during those years, defenses weren't switching screens on or off the ball at the frequency that they are now. Mm-hmm. So those actions with guys coming off screens, with handoffs, a lot of motion, the ball changing sides on the court, with the personnel, with the state of NBA defenses, was just devastating. It was devastating. But the way defenses, act now, when you don't have that caliber of players, it's a lot harder to run that. I saw a clip, Diana Taurasi talking years ago. I think it was the Bill Simmons podcast. It's like in 2015 or something, when the Warriors were the Warriors, when they were competing for championships. And she mentioned on the pod how, it's great to run that style, but sometimes you can't do that with depending on what a defense does. KD's talked about this over the years. She's like, there's limitations of the motion. And we're seeing that now. Like, the fact is Steph Curry leads the NBA in 3-point attempts per game. He should be taking more. Steph should be taking 5 more shots a game. It's just the truth with this year's personnel. And, part of me gets it in the sense that, Kerr doesn't want to move away from what they've done before, but you still gotta make tweaks. And the Warriors World tweeted a great video the other day of the Warriors running their weave, like at the top of the key, handoff to handoff, and it resulted in a Kent Bazemore, dribbling the ball towards the basket. Steph Curry didn't get a single touch, and Bazemore just turned the ball over, Hawks going the other way. And it's just, I've seen that so many times this year watching the Warriors where Steph doesn't get a touch. And in today's game with that team, that just shouldn't happen. It shouldn't happen. Steph is capable of creating for himself and for others better than anybody. And, while he is having a great individual season, there's still more that's been untapped from him this year, in my opinion, that could have had the Warriors in a far better position for being in the playoffs or maybe not even being in the play-in. I still think that there's more to this team if the system were a little bit different. But that doesn't change the fact that the personnel needs to improve dramatically, considering the Clay factor and the Draymond being worse, as we've talked about. Like, they got to make some serious changes. They have
and
to.
It's hard
and they need
now.
to be aggressive.
It's hard now to put more on his plate because he's trying to play through that tailbone thing, which would probably in a different year keep him out longer, right? It's obviously, he's not been playing a bunch of consecutive games in a row. This is a hard year for anybody to have an injury that they're going to attempt to play with because the games, it's just relentless, these schedules.
And that might be part of it. Yeah. Like, part of it here might be they don't want to give Stephen Curry 25 shots per game because it's like, what's the upside? That might be part of it.
The other thing is, I watched them play Miami. This might have been right when Steph came back, but it's maybe a week ago. I don't know. Again, this stuff all runs together. But he would come, they would set that high screen, and they just blitzed it.
Yeah,
they just blitzed it.
Traps.
And they just say, the hell with it. Somebody else beat us. And Andrew Wiggins was good in the first half, and then the second half didn't do crap. And it was like, okay, fine. If we lose to Andrew Wiggins, we lose to Andrew Wiggins. So what? But I remember back in the day, I was in a meeting where coaches were talking about how, it was against one of these Rockets teams, and it was like, we just want Capella catching the ball. We just want him getting the ball. They're going to throw it to him off of this pick and roll. We want him catching the ball and him making the decision. We'll live with it, but it gets the ball out of the guy's hands that we want the ball, don't want to have the ball, which is Harden. Anytime the ball is in Capella's hands instead of James Harden's hands, it's a win for our defense. You're right. And it's like, that's how you can play the Warriors. Anytime the ball's not in Steph's hands, it's a win. Fine. Who's going to kill us? Seriously. Yeah. Who's going to kill them?
Yep, they're going to blitz.
That used to be Clay, right?
Yep, they'd blitz and trap all game long. That's what they would do. And ultimately for Steph and for the Warriors, that's where the talent deficit is apparent. They need to have more shooters around him. And by the way, 2 years ago when they lost to Toronto in the finals, in my post-final story, I had a lot in there about the Warriors. People caught up with them in terms of 3-point shooting. They used to be ahead of the curve in terms of the amount of threes that they took. They're middle of the pack now. They haven't evolved over time when other teams have. And that's in terms of personnel. It's in terms of system, in terms of shot selection. They need to change. And I hope for that organization this year has made that very apparent, that they need to evolve in order to continue winning and competing for championships with Steph Curry. Otherwise, he might develop a wandering eye. Because why wouldn't he?
Let me say this. I lost our Andrew Wiggins bet by him still being on the Warriors post-trade deadline. I paid
Thank you,
the
Chris.
Andrew Wiggins debt.
Thank you.
But they are paying a much greater price than that. So I take solace in that. I lost my $100, but they're losing much more than $100 by having him still on that team because he should be the guy, right?
He's shooting 40% from three.
Yeah,
averaging 18 points. So they got the Minnesota. Well, not yet. We'll see what happens on lottery night with the Minnesota pick. But they could get that this year. Might be next year, though.
It's possible.
Either way, great pick to have.
I'm just talking about that's a lot of money sunk into a guy that doesn't exactly give me a lot of relief when everybody can just decide Steph Curry's not going to destroy me tonight.